and understand all the features that the template has. So if you bought Bulkit, you should have your main download file, and you should pick the latest Bulkit version, so not the precompiled folder or the documentation folder, but the Bulkit that's going to be 5.1 after this update. So first of all, a few hints to install the template. So you should have Node.js and npm installed. So what I'm going to do first is to check my Node.js version. I'm going to do node.v. Oh, not dot, but dash. And you can see that I'm on node 12.13.0. So node 12 is required to run Bulkit, and you should keep that in mind. So to install Bulkit, you're going to have to run a specific npm command, which is npm install, and then enter. I'm not going to run it now because I have Bulkit already installed. So just run that command and wait for it to finish. You might see some warnings popping at the end, and you should just ignore them since we're gonna just need that for development. So we don't have to worry about that. So first of all, I'm gonna open my code editor. I'm using VS Code. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna go back to my terminal, and first I'm gonna run the template. So to run the template, you're gonna need a specific gulp command. So yes, the template is actually handled by Gulp, which is a task runner. It runs a lot of tasks automatically to kind of simplify and enhance your developer experience. So once the template is installed after running npm install, you just have to run gulp dev, and what you're going to notice is that it's going to take quite a bit of time to start, and I'm going to explain why shortly after it started. So right now we're waiting for Gulp to start, and I just rebooted my laptop, so it might be, handling some other tasks before Gulp start. Oh, here we go. It has started. So you can see that several things are going on. We're copying some fonts, getting some data, copying some JS vendor files, and copying some CSS files that are actually coming from the JS plugin. We're also optimizing images, compiling HTML. We're also concatenating all JavaScript plugin files into a single file to avoid, multiple HTTP calls when running the pages. And you can notice right now that SCSS compilation is going to take a lot of time because we have several style sheets to compile. But this is only in development mode. You shouldn't compile all of those style sheets. We need them for the demo, but you won't actually need them when working on your project. So we're going to cover everything about, customization, configuration, and the actual code. So now the template is starting browser sync, which will run a development server in your browser. So here we go. Bulkit is fully started, 5.1, and we're ready, to start looking at what we have in here. So in this update, we've been refreshing every single page that we have in Bulkit, We've been also, making minor bug fixes for bugs that have been reported, and overall, we reworked every page and tried to leverage that theming system that we already have in place, meaning those color schemes. We actually have 10 precompiled color schemes that you can use, and you can as well create your own. So we tried to, give you different styles with different colors with the already available demos, and kind of set a cleaner basis for future updates. And that's gonna sound a lot clearer after I've gone through more detailed explanations. But you can see here on your own that we have kind of refreshed all the template pages. Excuse me. So we've also added a few, we enriched, we added some stuff in those components and sections, templates, so you can have more content to copy and to paste in your pages. And we'll see that in details a little bit later. Okay, so I think we're ready to start looking at the code. So let's open our editor. So for people who are not used to work with Node.js products or templates, we're gonna explain everything from the start. So it's not complicated, it's very simple. You just need to know what actually happens in there. So first of all, when we run npm install, we're actually installing all the dependencies that are required by the project to run. So you can look at what we installed in package.json. So that file's unique role is to keep track of all dependencies that we're using in the project. So we have dev dependencies, like its name says. We're using those only in development, and then dependencies that are the actual libraries that we'll be using inside the project. So that's for the package.json. Let's look at the Gulp file. So at the beginning of the video, I was speaking about Gulp, which is a task runner tool. That might sound, a bit foggy to you if you never used that tool, but it's really easy to learn, and in fact, you almost have nothing to do to start working with the project. I'm just going to explain what actually happens. So Gulp is a tool that is made to run tasks in a series task or parallel tasks. That really depends on what you want to do and how you want to compile your project. So basically, here we have some imports where we're importing a bunch of Gulp plugins that will help us do some stuff. And what you need to understand first is that every function that we have here that we call tasks, like development tasks or setup tasks or build tasks. So every single function that we have here is a task. And at the very end of the file, I'm going to scroll, we are actually using those tasks in a command bundle, I could say. So all those tasks, we're using the series option of Gulp. So that means that all tasks are executed synchronously, one after the other. So we have development, mode or tasks, and we have production or build tasks. So the main difference between those is that with development, that's what we are doing currently. So that will launch a development server and will reload the page each time you make a change, whether it's an HTML change or a JS, JavaScript change. If you make any SCSS change, then the page won't reload and the CSS, the new CSS will simply be injected into the page by browser sync without reloading the page. So on the command line, you'll be running gulp dev if you want to run the compilation with the development server, and gulp build if you want to actually build a distribution that you will find into the dist folder. That folder gets regenerated every time you make a change when you are in development mode. And in build mode, you can find the build distribution of your project that you can use in your backend project or directly upload on your server. And so those tasks are pretty similar. There are only slight differences between them. So let's look at some of the main tasks that we have here in Bulkit. So that setup Bulma task, that's something you won't need because it's actually copying the Bulma version, latest version from the node modules into the project, inside SRC. So that's already been done for you and you don't have to worry about it. Then we have the compile SCSS task. So this is a quite central task because it will, this is the task that will handle the compilation of your styles. So from SCSS to actual plain CSS that will be injected inside distribution assets CSS in here, and it gets regenerated each time you make a change in any of the SCSS files or partials that we have in the project. So here what is really important to say about this task is that we have a conditional here. So we have two possibilities. Gulp has two possibilities when running this task. So when running it, it will check for the value of this environment variable. And we're declaring that environment variable at the very top. You can see here that right now it's an empty string. So this part isn't executed at all. Instead, it executes this part. So let me give you a little more details. So you probably noticed that on the Bulkit demo, we're able to change themes dynamically. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 predefined color schemes that we can use. So about that variable, when we're in development here at CSS Ninja, we're working without the dev value. Why? That's because we want all style sheets to be actually compiled and rendered so that we can have this style switcher on the demo. However, when working on the project on your side, I highly recommend that you change this environment variable value to dev, like this, because you only have to work with a single style sheet. And if you're not planning to work with the core theme, this can be any one of these: teal, green, blue, azure, night, yellow, or purple, or whatever, or a custom, or simply a custom one that you have created. So when you'll be working on it, I highly recommend that you put you change this variable and put dev inside before running the template. But of course, you won't be generating those additional style sheets, and the style switcher won't be working anymore. But I guess you won't need it because it's really a demo oriented feature. Okay, so then we have that PurgeCSS task. So this is a enhancement that has been added with this update. So what does it do? It leverages a library that is called actually Purge CSS, I think. And what it does is at build time, so when running Gulp build, so if you're running Gulp dev, this won't run at all because it doesn't belong to development tasks. Actually, it's a build task. So what happens here is that Gulp is going to inspect your HTML and your CSS to see if there are in there some unused classes, and if it finds unused classes, it will simply remove them from the actual compiled CSS file, making it dramatically smaller and therefore highly improving the performance of your website in terms of asset loading. Like every other library, PurgeCSS has some some tricky things that you should know. For example, in every project, it's very common that we have some classes that are dynamically added by JavaScript. But the thing is, PurgeCSS is not aware about that because it doesn't know that we have some classes that will be added. So it doesn't see them in the CSS, and therefore it can, break your project. So this is why Bulkit being huge, you can see here we have quite a list. These are whitelisted classes that we don't want PurgeCSS to remove because they are most of the time active classes that are dynamically added with JavaScript. So these are explicit class names, while here in the deep option we have some patterns, because it would be too much, to list every single class that we need to keep. So we're also relying on patterns. Here we have an HTML compilation task that uses Panini. I don't want to expand too much on this because I'll be talking about Panini when actually diving into the template files. And then we have some utility functions that go with Panini, like reset pages. This is making, forcing Panini to refresh. This is the task I was speaking about earlier. It's about concatenating all the JavaScript plugins that we're using into a single file. So, sorry, that's absolutely not that. That's actually moving all of these files and concatenating them into a JavaScript bundle. This is Bulkit's custom JavaScript. So we have the same here. Those are for the plugins, the JS plugins, and those plugins for those who have style sheets, we're also doing the same, concatenating a app.css file that we'll be using in our layouts. Then we have other utility functions like the watch function that's will be actually watching for your changes and telling browser sync to reload the page when you've done some changes. You can see here some additional browser sync stuff with some other utilities like copying images to distribution, fonts, data, some vendor files, whether it's JS or CSS. And here we have some optimization tasks like linting for CSS, HTML, and JavaScript as well, and as well as some formatting functions. So I hope this wasn't too overwhelming. It's a lot, but actually it's very simple to get used to, and I bet you'll get used to that Gulp process in no time. Alright, so now that we're done with Gulp, we're actually going to take a look at what we have inside the project. So before speaking about the actual pages and how those are built and rendered, we're going to take a quick look at the assets folder. So yeah, quick note, you should, when running the Gulp project, you should only be working inside the SRC folder to make changes. So let's look at the assets. In the assets we have the font files, mostly icons and Nexa font that is used by Bulkit. We have images, we have JavaScript file that are broken into several small files, so you can easily remove what you don't need, what you need and what you don't need. And they're classified into components, extensions, features, forms, some utilities, and a main.js file that actually calls and instantiates all the functions that we've been declaring before. Good. So then we have the SAS folder. Remember that setup Bulma tasks that we've been looking to in the Gulp file. So this is where the Bulma files go, and we're actually calling them from our own SCSS file. So let's look at the core.scss, which is the main file for the core theme. So you can see that we're importing our custom variables, our custom theme. The main theme is actually the core theme, some shadow variables, and here we're actually importing the Bulma source that we're able to override using the variables. So you can put here any overridden Bulma variable, and that will actually override the default that is inside Bulma. Most of you should be pretty familiar already with the SCSS structure. We've divided the elements and the components into several different files, so you can only keep or use what you need, or make things easier to find. So I was speaking about the themes, and you can see here that those are the 10 predefined themes. So if you look at two different ones, you'll see that the only thing that will be changing in here is the theme import. So here we're importing the themes blue file, and here the themes main. All the rest is absolutely the same. So nothing stops you from creating a custom theme. You can simply create a custom.scss file and then copy everything from one of those, and then go in here into abstract and create, for an example, a themes-custom.scss file. You would simply get one example like this, copy everything, paste it into your custom theme file, and then start changing the main color variables. And that's about it. The only thing you will need not to forget is that if you create a custom theme, you will need to get back to the Gulp file and to the SCSS compilation task. And here you can see that the one I recommended, the dev, you're compiling only the core.scss. So if you created a custom.scss theme, you should replace core with custom or whatever name you called that theme. Good. So then we have some data. So this is just some JSON demo data that we're using in one of the autocomplete components. All right. So we're gonna go through now one of the most important parts, which is about how pages and layouts are created in this template. So we're going to take a more detailed look at that. So so in Bulkit, we're using a library which is called Panini. It's made by Zerb, which are the creators of the Foundation CSS framework. And what it does is really simple. It lets you, separate layout files from page files, and gives you the ability to use partials as well, HTML partials. So you don't have to repeat the same code ever and ever. All right. So how is a Bulkit page created? You will first need a layout. So let's look at one of our most used layouts, which is the landing.html layout. So what you can see here is the traditional top block that you can find in any HTML file. So we have a doc type, we have some meta tags, a title tag, and some links to get the Google fonts, some Mapbox API that we're using in some pages, our SCSS, our CSS, JavaScript CSS plugins that are concatenated into a single file, and of course our Bulkit style sheet. Please note that notation that we have here, that root notation, it tells the project to actually look into the dist folder to get the correct path to the files, because all of this is generated dynamically when working in development mode. Great. So next thing is to speak about those strange little thingies. So everyone who's already familiar with handlebars should already know these mustache tags. So those tags are actually calls to HTML partials. To be very simple, when I'm calling this page loader partial, I'm just, calling a file that is inside partials, page loader.html. So that's it. That's really simple. So if you want to call an HTML partial that you created and put into the partials folder, you just need to use the double curly brackets syntax with that closing HTML arrow, and then simply the name of the file without the HTML extension. You don't need to to give the complete, absolute, or relative path to the file, because Panini will find it whatever level of subnested folders it is in. So the only thing you have to worry about is that your partials should have unique names. That's the only thing. So you can see here that we have the page loader, the sidebar, the back to top button, the style switcher that we're using on the demo, the chat button, and the chat widget as well. Here we're also calling some scripts, so that app.js, which is the concatenated JavaScript plugins file, and the core.js, which is the concatenated Bulkit custom JavaScript file. And you can see here that we're calling the Mapbox API as well. If you've been following with me, you probably noticed that I didn't speak about that body tag. So, although it looks quite the same as the others, a simple partial, it's not as simple as that. Actually, it's a shortcut to tell Panini to inject the page content in here. So let me be clear. If a page uses that landing layout, all the content of the page will be injected into this tag to create the final page that will be rendered inside the distribution folder. Alright, so I think it's pretty clear about partials and layouts. So you can see here that we have different layouts when the page structure is different, or you need to import different assets. So you might have the need to create more than one layout, but in most cases you only need one, or at most two. So we are going now to talk about how the pages are actually built. So I'm going to open that pages folder and look at a random landing page. So I'm going to look at, let's say, Kit 1 landing, this one. Okay, so at the top of the page, we have this very strange thingy. So when building pages, all your pages will need to start with this, because those two lines are doing, the first one is the most important, and the second one is not as that important, but it still is. So the first one is actually telling Panini which layout to use. So in that Kit 1 landing, you can see that the layout that is being used is landing. So you just have to open your layouts folder and look for the landing layout. So it's simply the name of the file again without the HTML extension. So that means that all the content that I have in this page, everything like this to the bottom of the page, gets injected into that body tag when Panini actually does the work of compiling the page. So then you can simply, have your content in here and copy and paste from other pages to create your own pages. And by the way, to make things even simpler, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to show you how to create a new page inside Bulkit. So what we're going to do is create a new file, and we're going to call this home, or let's say maybe tutorial.html. So I have that empty HTML file, and I want to take a look at it. So I'm going to visit that URL, tutorial.html. So as you can see, we have absolutely nothing in here. I'm going to start by pasting that statement. So I'm going to give this page a title of tutorial, and I'm going to save. So now you can see that we have the page loader that showed up, and we have our style switcher, but we still don't have any content in this page. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to my Kit 1 landing, because I'm going to pick, for example, the hero from that page, and I'm going to simply paste it in here, and I'm going to save the page, and my page is going to reload. And as you can see, I have the hero fully functioning. I'm not able to scroll, but it's already in there. And I'm going to go to random pages and get some sections to copy. This will probably don't make any sense when we'll be looking at the actual page, but we're gonna do it. So I'm just, gonna copy like 2 or 3 random sections. Like this one says services, so let's get this one, and another one, maybe from the startup product. Oh yeah, let's look at that pricing section. And I'm going to take that footer as well, that partial footer, and I'm going to add it here. I'm going to save. The page is going to be reloaded, and wow, I have some content in there. So my pricing section, my footer, CTA or services section, some boxes. So like you can see, it's really easy to get started with Bulkit. You just have to copy and paste, and everything you need is in there. Right, so just want to check something. Yeah, so you'll see that in some layouts, I think that the e-commerce layout actually uses that. So let's look at the commerce layout. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we don't need that scripts file anymore, I guess. So that will probably be removed from the next update. All right, so I think we covered most of it, and I hope that this has been, kind of helpful, and that you'll be able to get started, easier on your project. So I'm just now wondering if there's something more that I can tell you. I'm going to remove that page because I'm not going to need it anymore. And I'm just wondering if there's something I should add for you. But I think I've covered almost everything. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you have any trouble setting up or working with this product, we'll be very happy to help you. And so just open a support ticket on our support portal, which is support.cssninja.io. Okay, so I think we can wrap up. It's been a pleasure doing this video for you, and